Okay, so you know that whole back in the dating game thing after divorce? Well, someone sent in this article,
I think it was called, like, 5 Signs You're Ready for Love After Divorce.
okay.
Yeah, I know. Total clickbait. But
You mean, right.
I feel like these things, even if they're cheesy, they kind of point to something real, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if they're simplified, they touch upon, like, important emotional milestones.
Oh, okay. So for anyone who's been through it, what did this article get right or maybe get a little too simplistic?
Right, yeah.
Because they had this whole list of 5 signs, like emotional stability, self-love, forgiveness, clear vision for the future, and then, like, excitement about dating, which I'm like, hold on, let's unpack that one.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I mean, these are all good starting points, but it's like, what do they really mean in practice?
Right.
Right, because it's not really a checklist. It's about understanding the emotional process.
Okay, so let's break it down. Because I think, like, when you say emotional stability, some people might hear that and think, like, oh, I need to be, like, totally over my ex. I need to, like, never be sad or angry about it ever again.
Right, yeah. No, it definitely doesn't mean you've become, like, an emotionless robot overnight.
Okay, good.
Right. It's okay to still have moments, but the point is the intensity lessens over time.
Okay.
You're not letting those feelings, like, hijack your whole day, or a date for that matter.
Totally. You've, like, learned to kind of, like, ride the waves of those feelings.
Precisely, yeah. It's not about suppressing those feelings of, like, grief or anger, that comes up, but more about acknowledging them, processing them in a healthy way. I once heard this great visualization from a therapist who was like, imagine putting those emotions on a passing cloud instead of, like, letting them take root in your mind.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And that actually, I think, ties in really nicely with the whole self-love piece of this, because it's easy to roll your eyes when you see self-love, right?
Right.
You're just like, oh yeah, bowl baths, face mask, which, by the way, fantastic, love it.
But of course, indulge.
But there's, like, a deeper level to that, right?
Totally, yeah. I think this is where it really ties back to, like, after a divorce, it can really dent your self-worth.
Right.
And so it's not about just, these external things. It's about, like, rebuilding that sense of worth from the inside out.
Yes.
It's recognizing that, like, your value, your worthiness of love and connection isn't tied to your relationship status.
Which I think is a really hard thing to untangle sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I do think, like, that's part of what they were getting at with the whole not seeking external validation thing, which is, if you need to be in a relationship to feel good about yourself, that's a sign maybe that you need to, like, work on some stuff.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, so forgiveness.
Yes.
This one I struggle with in the article because they talk about forgiving yourself and your ex.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm curious to get your take on this, because is that always necessary? Like, what if they were really, really terrible?
Right, yeah.
Like, what does that even look like to forgive someone?
Yeah, no, this is a big one. And it's definitely nuanced,
Sure.
Forgiveness, it doesn't mean that you're condoning bad behavior or pretending like hurtful things didn't happen.
Right.
It's more about, at its core, releasing yourself.
Right.
It's releasing yourself from the burden of that past hurt, because ultimately holding on to resentment, it really only hurts you in the long run.
It's like you're still letting them, like, live rent-free in your head. Right.
Exactly, yeah. You said it perfectly. It's about finding peace, for yourself more than it is about the other person. So moving on, I mean, you talked about how there are a few of these that really stood out to you.
Yeah, well, and this next one always gets me, which is that whole idea of having a clear vision for your future.
Yeah.
That extends beyond finding a partner. And I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, oh, so I need to have, like, my 5-year plan.
Right.
Perfectly laid out.
Yeah.
I need to have achieved all of my goals. Like, what does that even mean?
It's so true. And I think that's where it's easy to get caught up in these articles because, yeah, of course, you don't need, like, this bullet pointed list of all the things that
Health plan.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not really about having all the answers, right?
Okay.
It's more about, like, having that sense of direction, having passions. Are there things that, like, light you up, dreams you want to pursue? Because, that passion, it's contagious.
Oh, it's so attractive.
It is.
When you see someone who's really, like, jazzed about something, you're like, tell me more.
Exactly.
I think that's kind of what the article was getting at, right? Like, you need to be excited about your own life before you can genuinely be excited about sharing it with someone.
100%. 100%.
Which brings us to the last one, which felt very daunting when I read it, which is, like, be excited about dating.
Right.
And I'm just imagining so many people listening.
Yeah.
Like after a divorce going, excited, I'm terrified.
Yeah. And I think that's totally fair. It's understandable to feel that way, especially after, going through a difficult experience. But I think it goes back to what we were saying about like not needing to have all the answers and just kind of approaching it with more of that sense of curiosity rather than, dread.
Like,
It doesn't need to be this big, scary thing. Just think of it as, expanding your social circle, meeting some new people, and see what happens.
like almost like taking the pressure off of it.
Totally.
Yeah, because it is. It's
Yeah.
like you're supposed to just like magically be ready.
Yeah,
You're like, but what if I'm not?
exactly.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, I guess, like, even in the article, they had that whole thing about they literally had a relationship readiness quiz.
Of course they did. Which, like, come on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the idea, I guess, of like checking in with yourself, it's important.
I think so, too. And it is easy to get, like, wrapped up, again, with the checklist and all of that, and just forget to check in with ourselves. Like, how are you really doing?
Right.
And are you excited about the prospect of, potentially sharing your life with someone, or are you just feeling, like, pressured to do it?
Yeah.
So if you are questioning your readiness, that in itself, honestly, might be a sign to just like slow down, give yourself permission to take your time and focus on, you and your own well-being first.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prioritize you.
There you go.
There you go. Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. And for everyone listening, thank you for sending in your questions. If this resonated, if you're like, ooh, forgiveness, what is that? We want to hear from you.